My name is Laura Baucus. Welcome to episode 1 of Dykema Drives, Dykema's new series focused on the legal and business issues important in the automotive industry and the people behind them. I'm the director of Dykema's automotive industry group, and today for our first guest, I'm really excited to have a good friend and esteemed automotive colleague, Nicoletta Berrino. Nicoletta is the Director of Legal, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary of MAHLE. Welcome, Nicoletta.
Thank you very much, Laura, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you were able to make it over. Can you walk me through your background and what led you to a legal career in the auto industry?
Yeah. Okay, so my life, as you know, it's a little bit of an adventure. I was born and raised in Italy, so in Europe, and I came into the United States in 2009 when I was basically 37, 38. I studied law in Italy, and then I practiced as a litigator for 7 years in a big firm doing commercial work. And at a certain point of my career, I decided to move in-house, and I was hired by the biggest Italian OEM, and I worked in Italy until 2010. And then in 2010, I moved to the United States, actually 2009, with my husband to basically help him out in his career. In the meantime, I had a maternity leave and a sabbatical to be able to stay away from work.
So we chatted a bit beforehand, Nicoletta, and something that you said really stuck with me. You said soccer mom was not my natural habitat, and you were not an expert in carpool etiquette. So tell me, what about that led you to really excel in your career?
So when I came into the United States, I even thought of, maybe I could stay home and be a mom and enjoy my 2 kids. At the time, they were 2 and 4. And maybe start a new life. Who knows? And I realized pretty quickly that that was not what I wanted to do. I really missed my job. I missed the interaction with the colleagues. I missed the excitement of the challenge, of a new problem to solve.
And of course, as we all know, we're also full-time moms and full-time workers. It doesn't go away.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is that you don't lose one job to get another one. Unfortunately, the mom job is something that remains, and it is a full-time.
100%. So that brought you to Detroit. Can you tell me about some of the people or decisions that you think shaped your journey?
I always tell everybody I love law so much that I basically took 2 degrees, one in Europe and one in US, or it would have been impossible to take the bar and to work as an attorney in US. So at a certain point in time, the General Counsel of my job in Italy called me to let me know that there was a position open in Detroit. And at that point, my husband followed me to Detroit for my career. And that is probably the point in which my career shifted and really led me to the leader and the manager I am today. Because I met Tim Beezer, who was the General Counsel in Comau, the company where Stellantis sent me to, who was really a great organizer. He really taught me how to shape strategically a legal department. So how to really be a partner to the other members and to the other stakeholders of the company, rather than just always being there as a firefighter to clean up the problem that just raised. He really helped me to start prevent. And then I think I was lucky enough immediately after, when I moved to MAHLE, to work for another general counsel, Angelique Strommark, who was really an unbelievable mentor and taught me everything that I didn't have yet about how to retain talent, how to give back to the community, how to help your team to grow and succeed in time.
So one of the things you mentioned to me was the motto that Tim taught you: less is more.
Well,
As attorneys, especially in-house, I'm sure you're often doing with less. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, when I came to the US and I started working with him and showing the work I was doing, he was like, no, less is more, just write the less you can. And as you said, less is more is really in all our environment, because we know very well what the cost constraints are right now. And the organizational skill that he really gave me helped me out in shaping really the legal department that I'm proud of leading right now at MAHLE.
So I have met several of your externs over the year, and I guess I didn't really realize the role you had in creating it and Angelique. And this is one of the premier externships that exists in the Detroit area and for the automotive industry.
So we have a great law school in Detroit at Wayne State, and they have this externship program in which every semester one extern comes to the office and basically learn how to be an attorney. What Angelique taught me, and this is a program that actually started with her, which is giving back to the community. Because it's a program in which we don't really gain much. It's more the time we spend in mentoring and helping the students than what they give back to us in terms of really like daily work. But at the same time, nobody does anything for free. And for me, thinking about team organization skills, this is a way for us to pull out all the extras that we really like, which at the end of the semester maybe become our intern and start working with us in a long term.
So, as someone who went to Wayne State, I would agree it's an excellent pipeline. But I have met several of your externs, and I do appreciate that you bring them to meetings, you bring them to events, to conferences. So, interesting question because someone like you, who's certainly into food, and you're foodie, and you're into fashion, how did you get into the automotive industry?
I mean, that would have been my dream come true, working into fashion
I
or
still got it.
in the food industry. But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you are born and raised in Turin, it's like if you're born and raised in Detroit, sooner or later, even if you don't want to get into the automotive industry would get you. All the supply chain and most of Turin is based on Stellantis. And therefore, it's very likely that at a certain point in your career, you will end up in the circuit, which is what happened to me. Would I love to be in fashion? Probably. But I also have to say that if you survive the automotive industry, you can go everywhere because it's such a demanding and full of surprises industry that nothing can scare you after that. It's really an extraordinary way to build your career.
100% agree. And as someone who was born and raised in the Detroit area, absolutely, the automotive industry finds you, whether you like it or not. But it's
Yeah.
a great place to dig in and develop
Exactly.
as well. All right, so MAHLE specifically, I know you've been at Stellantis and Camo, your MBA, your JD, and your LLM. So what drew you to MAHLE, though, specifically?
So when I came back, I started working back in Detroit. I worked for Comau for 5 years. And he was the general counsel at the time. And he was too good to be terminated by the company because he was absolutely incredible. And I probably was too hungry to stay there and wait for, something to happen. Therefore, in 2019, after 5 years at Comau, I started looking around and see if there was anything else available. Also understanding that with the European background, I might have probably not interested much a lot of American companies, but I would have been probably an asset for European companies and mostly the tier one that are in the area. MAHLE was looking for a senior counsel at the time, and then I applied.
And when we chatted about MAHLE before, you talked about one of the immediate things that drew you to MAHLE is when you walked into the room, you heard the sound of every language in the world being spoken in the halls. And that's something that really resonated with you.
So, when I arrived at MAHLE, I think one person from HR was walking me to the conference room. We had to walk past the cafeteria. And I really started, and I'm not kidding, to hear employees speaking in Spanish, in Portuguese, in Spanish. And I thought, wow, I would not be the only one to have an accent here then. And it's really, I would say, if I think about a global company and multicultural company, MAHLE absolutely is one of them, doesn't disappoint.
Remind me now, when did you step into the role as general counsel?
Well, 18 months after. I hoped I would have had a little bit more with Angelique, but she decided to leave the company to pursue a different opportunity. So it was December 2019. No, 2020, I'm sorry, during the pandemic though. Yeah, in the worst period that we experienced in life and in the automotive.
So when you first stepped into being GC, obviously it was pandemic, supply chain, all sorts of complexity. What happened? Tell me about the pressure. Tell me what you didn't fully anticipate.
Yeah, so the pressure was really at maximum level because, as you said, we were facing a moment in time that didn't have any precedent. In addition to that, two people left MAHLE before Angelique. So I was basically left alone with just another member of the legal department in a moment in time in which everybody had an issue and we had to solve a lot of situations. It was also the moment in which my husband relocated in Italy for a great opportunity for him. So I was left in Detroit with one 14-year-old, one 12-year-old who were not going to school or were going, I think one was going 2 days at school and 3 days remote. The other one was going to school in the afternoon. And I had a brand new job in which I actually had to show the company that I was able to do that and succeed. Sometimes when I think back, I'm proud of myself because I don't know how I could survive that. I was working all the time, day, night, just, to keep up with the work and everything. And that was also the moment in which I realized how the general counsel role differs a lot from just being an attorney.
Yeah. And you have some interesting quotes. You say general counsel, it's like half legal, half therapist,
Oh.
crisis management, half legal advisory position. Tell me about how those things all mesh together.
Yeah, a lot of time I think of myself really like a therapist or a priest because I have so many situations in which, so first of all, I have the tendency to start my work late. So I usually arrive in the office around 9. I have my first calls, my team's calls at home, and then I go to the office at 9. And I have also the tendency to stay late at night because at least after 5, no more teams call and they can finally concentrate on, on doing some real work. And those are actually the time in which people come to my office. And when I see someone arriving from the hallway and they come to the office and they close the room, I'm like, here we go. And that's when the therapy session starts. Yeah, because a lot of time it's not only about giving the team and the leadership the legal advice. It's really just sometimes to tell them, we will be fine. It will be fine. We will find a way to get through it. We will find a solution. And sometimes really, just being the one with common sense. Because I realize, along the line and in all these years of work, because I've been basically in the legal field since 1996 when I graduated, that most of the time we are the one who needs to put the common sense because it's not so common around.
But let's change and talk about hot issues or important issues facing the automotive industry that you have to deal with from a legal or a therapist viewpoint on a daily basis.
Yeah. So the automotive industry now, wow, that's what a question. So first of all, I think the automotive industry has not gone back to normal. We should probably define normal, or at least in the stage if it was like a few years ago. And I don't even know if it will ever go back. And just to talk about, I don't think before 2019, 2020, when we hit the pandemic, I've ever written a force majeure letter. Then let's not even talk about all the ongoing past and ongoing geopolitical tension in the world, the war in Ukraine, now the war in Middle East, the high interest rate, the labor shortage. I mean, it's a problem and it's an issue no matter where you look at. It's an issue with supply chain. The world changed so much that I think the relationship with the OEM and the supplier also need to change. And right now we're still at 10 years ago. And that's, to me, the issue that I see right now that all suppliers or all companies are actually facing.
Definitely agree. Customer supplier disputes do seem to be at, I want to say, an all-time high because it's ebbed and flowed throughout the years.
Yeah.
Over the last 18 months, up and down the supply chain, not just with OEMs, it seems to have increased. So switching a little bit to another pressure point in the industry, electrification, new programs, BEV programs. Tell me a little bit about how those new programs have impacted the industry, both positive, negative, and how you see MAHLE continuing to partner.
I mean, for sure, it's the EV part, I think, is one of the most challenging. and to a certain extent, one of the most interesting also. We are basically getting into a complete different world where the old car doesn't make sense anymore, and we really need to start thinking about a product and infrastructure that is completely new.
Do you have any ideas of how to change this? What's the answer? I understand when some of the government programs went away, then consumer desire for the products wasn't necessarily there, and the infrastructure may impact that to some extent. But is there an answer, or at least an answer from a legal perspective that you see?
The answer from a legal perspective is really to start changing a little bit the relationship that we have with our customer and start to become more partner, especially on this program that are still a big question mark. And so really try to have more flexibility in the contract and to have more transparency between the parties.
So moving on a little bit, is there an area in the automotive industry where you're seeing very rapid change or quite a bit of uncertainty?
In these last couple of years, I would say the supply chain had the biggest impact of all the situation that we have around the world. The problem is that, reshoring is not something that can be done in a day.
No. Not inexpensive.
It's not that expensive and is not fast.
And I appreciated the comment that you made that you read somewhere.
I mean, now you have the shortage of microchip, which impacted us for 1 year, if not two. Then polymer. I mean, there was a period in which we were receiving force majeure letter from all of our biggest supplier of chemicals. And I'm not talking about small supplier. I mean, I'm talking about the world leader in the sector. And then now it's microchip again.
We all know supply challenge. You can talk about supply challenges all day long. Tell me a little bit about what you find rewarding about being the General Counsel at MAHLE.
Well, what I found rewarding, well, for sure, the relationship I have with the people, with all the leadership. One of the reasons I decided to move in-house from my career as a litigator was because I couldn't see the big picture. Coming in-house, I was actually able to see through and be able also to prevent certain things and to really help the company grow. As a GC now, that is brought to the extreme level, because you also are part of the strategy of the company. So that's what's really rewarding when you make a proposal on certain things that need to change. And you can see that after a while, the leadership start thinking about that, the change happen. I like very much the mentoring side of my job, which is very rewarding. And it's not only the externship program, but I always have both young attorneys working with us and more seasoned, but the part of being able to shape future general counsel, because that is what ultimately will happen. Sooner or later, they will leave me to get a bigger job elsewhere. But I think the best part is being able to be part of the strategy of the company. So being also able to help out on where the company wants to go, which is not only small matters, but more the bigger policy, the bigger corporate tasks.
One of the things I find very exciting about being in the automotive industry right now is we're part of a substantial transformation in the industry, being completely reshaping it from electrification to AVs and moving forward. What about that excites you?
I would not see myself in a huge legal department, only being responsible, for example, of M&A, or only being responsible for warranty cases, which is also probably the reason why I didn't stay where I was, because I didn't want to again, only see one part of the big problem. So I think one of the biggest challenges we have, but is actually what fuels me, is knowing that every day I go to the office and I don't know what's on my table. Because one day you wake up and boom, we have a new set of tariff, and every day it's a new thing. So you need to start learning, and you need to start becoming the expert on certain topics that you didn't know even existed until the day before. And then you have the supplier who calls like, oh, we're stopping shipment because we are going bankrupt. So I think for me, The biggest challenge of today industry is that it's always changing. And really, at this stage of my career, what I really like is really to combine not only the leadership, but the judgment. And I can also use the so-called soft skills, the empathy. And it's not only just looking at a document and telling the team, well, this contract needs to be changed or this is the problem, but it's really more like, being part of all this transformation.
So what's something people would be surprised to learn about you?
So I'm an antique freak. I like to go to antique market. I like to go to estate sales to look for, antique chinas to set up, on my table. I love to cook. I like to repurpose things. I like to drive with very, very high music in the car, techno music, to the point that when I was taking my daughter to school and driving her, the music was always high because basically I didn't want to hear her talking and complaining already at 7 a.m. And so I was just keeping the music very loud. And sometimes I was dancing and she was like, "You're so embarrassing, ma'am."
I did not know that you were into techno music. So that's great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if you weren't a general counsel or you weren't even a lawyer, what else would you do? I love this question because I, in fact, have no idea myself.
No, I actually wanted to study architecture. So I wanted to be an architect. I am very creative, which to a certain extent is probably one of the reasons I'm good at my job, because I always try to think outside of the box. But I think I would have loved to be an architect, to remodel old houses, again, to repurpose something that was already there and had an history. So I think that would have been my career. Maybe in a future life, who knows?
There's still time. We're on. Well, thank you so much, Nicoletta, for joining me today on our first episode of Dykema Drives, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.